The New England Patriots start Black Monday early and fire Jerod Mayo. Is Mike Vrabel coming home? That and more on today's edition of Locked On NFL.
The new Locked On NFL. The madman Tyler Rowland is your double shot of NFL espresso with the Locked On local experts on every major story. Get ready. Rowland is revving up. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Football fans, welcome in to the Locked On NFL podcast, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with help from our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I am your host, the madman Tyler Rowland, joined today as I am every Monday by Locked On NFL expert Gino Camilleri. On today's episode, we'll talk about the Bucs and the Broncos finally confirming their place in the playoffs. We'll talk about the Detroit Lions securing the number 1 seed over the Vikings, but we got to start with Jerod Mayo being fired by the New England Patriots. Before we dive in, thank you for making Locked On NFL your first listen and for being an everydayer here with us at the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOn. NFL terms and conditions apply. Gino, the Patriots got things going and fired Jerod Mayo after 1 season.
I truly can't believe it. But did Mr. Kraft make the wrong former Patriots hire last year, and he's potentially thinking of maybe bringing in Mike Vrabel now that door is open?
It could be the case. And my guy Mike Debate from Locked On Patriots broke down the big move.
The New England Patriots' decision to part ways with head coach Jerod Mayo after only 1 season on the bench may have been, according to team owner Robert Kraft, one of the toughest decisions he's ever had to make. But make no mistake about it, folks, it was inevitable. I'm Mike Debate, host of Locked On Patriots, and less than 1 hour after the Patriots defeated the Buffalo Bills 23-16 at Gillette Stadium on Sunday, the Pats decided not to wait until Monday, letting go of head coach Jerod Mayo after only 1 season as coach in New England. And the search for the Patriots' 3rd head coach in as many seasons will now begin. Speculation has already started, from veteran coach Mike Vrabel to Detroit Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson. However, you must keep in mind that this time around, the Patriots must perform a comprehensive coaching search, and they owe it to themselves to do it. The priority should be finding an experienced head coach and experienced coordinators that are not only capable of cultivating young talent, but helping to build this program back to a level of respectability.
Obviously, there's a lot to jump into here with the Patriots' decision, but just on its face, firing Jerod Mayo after 1 season, it just doesn't seem right. You know, just the optics of it feel shady. It does not feel like a clean, wise decision. He feels like a scapegoat here. He feels like he was set up as a 1-year patsy. And like, it doesn't compute to me and make sense to me that last year we're sold, hey, we've been grooming this guy. You know, he's been under Bill Belichick. He's a former Patriot. We have all this belief in him, and that's why we've kept him in the organization and gotten him ready for this point, and then to fire him after 1 season. It just doesn't feel right to me, and I feel bad for Jerod Mayo in this situation that he doesn't get another opportunity with this young football team.
I think the idea of stringing along Jerod Mayo and then following through with it is exactly how you burn a bridge as a professional organization. And to see exactly how things went down at the end of the Belichick tenure and what was going on with Tom Brady, and now to see this Mayo situation, what coach would want to go to New England right now with the roster they have, with how much scrutiny you're going to be under, with a year to turn that roster over? Because if Jerod Mayo got the axe after a year, why would you not get the axe after a year? What coaches want to go to that environment or any environment like that, in my opinion? This isn't the Patriots of old, Ty. This is a new day. And, man, they trotted Joe Milton out there today, which, I mean, that cost them in their own right.
Yep. I think that might have something to do with it, if we're honest, is the fact that Mayo was able to go out there and still get a victory when the Patriots could have secured the number 1 pick. You have to wonder if it's, a Lovie Smith situation with the Texans, where he kind of won that game against the Colts at the end of the year. I got to be honest, though. And I understand what you're saying, generally speaking. Like, you fire a coach after 1 year who was a Patriots lifer, really, for them, and part of the family and all that. How could any coach be comfortable? But I think the reality of the situation is this is a fantastic opening. You have Drake May, who looks like he could be a franchise quarterback going forward, and that's the type of quarterback that a coach would like to saddle himself to for the next 3 or 4 years to see what they can do together. You do have a committed ownership, and I know that they've, like Mike said, they'll have their third coach, but I think it's clear that they didn't trust Mayo from the beginning, and I think that they would give another coach, and there are some problems with that type of thinking, and that they're going to do it that way, that obviously we can get into when the hire is made. But I think that with Drake May, with committed ownership, with the cap situation, they're going to have a ton of cap space. They have a ton of high draft picks this year in the top 4, even if they didn't get the number 1 pick. I think this is one of the best openings, and that's why I don't think that the Patriots did this without knowing who they're going to go get. I think either it's Mike Vrabel or it is Ben Johnson. I think it is one of those 2 options right there. And because of I remember an interview a couple of weeks ago where there was a reporter, I don't know exactly who it was, but a big national reporter, and they were basically hinting that Mike Vrabel already knows where he's going when the season is over. And now we see this move, and it kind of starts making sense. So I think Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel, because of how attractive the opening is with the Patriots, I think they will get one of those 2 options. And again, it does not look good. The optics aren't good here. It looks like a slimy move from the Patriots.
It definitely does, and I'm sure whoever's going to go into that situation is going to go do their own due diligence on it as well. And I just wanted to play devil's advocate to the situation, because if you look at it on the bright side, you're in a division where Buffalo is the only dominant team right now. Miami, you just see what's going on with them. Tyreek Hill wants out the door. Who knows what's going on with the Jets? You might have one of the better young quarterbacks in football with Drake May. If you are Ben Johnson, like you said, and that's your guy, or Mike Vrabel knows an offensive coordinator that he can get the best out of and he can run that defense, having that type of ownership, that yes is going to put the heat on, but like you said, it's committed. He'll give you the resources. You have the personnel department and the entire backing to turn that thing around in no time. I just wanted to play devil's advocate to say that the optics aren't good up front, and I'm sure that the discussions are going to be had and more is going to be coming out about it. But that's Robert Kraft. That's a Jerry Jones. There's only a few of these type of owners that kind of play the game that way. And hey, man, that's what you get when you go and win 6 Super Bowls in the 21st century. So he could get a little respect in my book.
Expectations are definitely high. And speaking of high expectations, we got a big matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings for the number 1 seed. And boy, did the Lions put a whooping on the Vikings. We got a lot more to discuss from a big Week 18 in the NFL. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. Growing your small business in 2025 comes down to how well you can hire. And let's face it, better hires start with smarter insights. That's where LinkedIn comes in. With the strongest hiring data available, LinkedIn helps you identify the right candidates, giving you the confidence to make better decisions for your business. I've used LinkedIn Jobs myself, and I can tell you it's a game changer when it comes to hiring the right fit. Small businesses are wearing a lot of hats, so every hire is crucial. LinkedIn gets that. That's why they connect you with the best candidates using data you won't find anywhere else. From unique skills and interests to connections you share, LinkedIn helps you find the right person for the job. In fact, 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn has helped them find high-quality candidates. I know from experience how important it is to make the right hiring decisions. Having access to insights like what skills candidates have and how they're connected to your network, that helps you feel confident when you pull the trigger. Hire smarter this year and find the next great hire on LinkedIn. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions that you forgot about, or maybe that you were paying for twice? It's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was still paying for, and Rocket Money made them so easy to track down. It's like having a personal assistant for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitor your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether it's subscriptions, your spending habits, or even goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of 500 million in canceled subscriptions. For me, one of the best features is that subscription tracker. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore, and I've already saved a ton. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on, rocketmoney.com/locked-on. All right, Gino, let's continue today's edition of Locked On NFL. We talked about the big move by the New England Patriots to fire Jerod Mayo and what might be next for the Patriots after that move. Now we got to look at the biggest game of the week between the Detroit Lions and the Minnesota Vikings. The Detroit Lions absolutely cruised to a huge victory. The Vikings looked terrible on the offensive side of the ball throughout most of the night. And my guy Matt Derry from Locked On Lions talked about the big win to clinch the #1 seed for the Lions.
The Detroit Lions have won the NFC in the regular season. They are back-to-back NFC North champions after taking out the Minnesota Vikings in the game of the year tonight, 31-9. Everybody's going to talk about Jahmyr Gibbs and his 4 touchdowns and Jared Goff and everything that the offense and Ben Johnson have done. But how about little-known Amik Robertson, the feisty cornerback holding Justin Jefferson to 3 catches all night, keeping him out of the end zone. What a job by Aaron Glenn. That secondary and everybody on that Lions defense holding Sam Darnold, Jefferson, and that Vikings offense to just 9 points. Lions have won the division. They've won the NFC for the regular season, meaning they'll get a first-round bye next week. Much-needed rest as the playoffs and the NFC goes through Detroit.
What a massive, massive loss for the Minnesota Vikings. Look, the Detroit Lions have been great all year, no doubt about it. But the Lions had not been playing their best ball lately. The defense did look a little bit vulnerable. They did give up 34 points to San Francisco. Like, they have not played their best football as of late. They have all the injuries on the defensive side of the ball. No David Montgomery for the Lions offense. Like, there were so many reasons in this game for Minnesota to take that next step and to Minnesota to win this game. I know they're in Detroit, but Minnesota had just been playing such great football, and Detroit had been not playing their best football of the season, even while winning. For Minnesota to go in there, hey, you lose. But they got absolutely shellacked, and the biggest nightmare of Minnesota Vikings fans, the biggest nightmare possible, is that Sam Darnold turns back into a pumpkin. I'm not going to all of a sudden poo-poo everything that Darnold has done this year, but games like tonight have to make you worry about whether he pees down his leg during the playoffs.
Football is a funny thing that sometimes history does repeat itself, and sometimes time is a flat circle. It feels so identical, Ty, to the 2017 Minnesota team where Case Keenum caught lightning in a bottle and they just looked electric in world beaters. And then all of a sudden they run into a red hot team. At the time it was the Eagles. Now you see Minnesota run into a Lions team that might have the 3 best coaches right now with, Campbell and Johnson and what Glenn has done there. Those 3 guys, outstanding job this season. But what a world where you only lose 3 games. Usually this Sunday night game is, I remember the time when it was Sam Bradford and a Seahawks team that was battling for a winless champion, or a losing record champion of the West. Now you have a team that lost 3 games as the 5 seed and they have to go on the road.
Yeah.
Are you so confident if you're Minnesota going on the road after that performance of laying an egg against Detroit? And Detroit has to feel really good about themselves because they now know we've beaten everybody in the North. We're going to be able to get some rest with a banged up roster. That's why the coaching staff has done such a phenomenal job. They have nobody from the starting roster there on the defensive side. And even when the offense doesn't go great, Ty, 31 points. I mean, that's impressive stuff, dude. That's really good football by Detroit.
Yeah, it's just so consistent. And you look at the Minnesota thing, now they have to go across the country to play the Los Angeles Rams for the great season that they had. That's their payment. And if you look at the Minnesota Vikings season, who are the teams that they've lost to? They lost to the Lions twice. And then who was the other team they lost to? Oh, wait, who was that? The Los Angeles Rams at Los Angeles.
Football's funny, Ty. It's funny.
They couldn't beat the Lions. They couldn't beat the Rams in Los Angeles. And now they couldn't beat the Lions. And they got to go play the Rams in Los Angeles. And the Rams are a team that I've been talking about for quite a few weeks, for about a month now, saying, hey, I don't know if you want to play them in the playoffs. And they lost to Seattle in the final week of the season. Nobody cared about that game because everything was already settled. But this is not how you're supposed to be rewarded for a 14-3 season if you're the Minnesota Vikings, for sure. But moving away from that, want to stay in the NFC North, though. The Green Bay Packers go out there in the final week of the season when, look, it's not like the Packers have lost a ton of games either. So I'm not going to sit here and act like, they had some terrible end of the season. It's not like they lost a million games. But the Green Bay Packers have not had great vibes as of late. And they go out there in the final week of the season and lose to the Chicago Bears and let the Chicago Bears, who they have owned for so long, making miraculous plays at the end of the game to set up a game-winning field goal, 24-22, for the Packers to finish their season with 2 divisional losses, for Jordan Love to get banged up in the game and then bizarrely start warming up towards the end of the game after Malik Willis has been in. Christian Watson hurts his knee. Like, the vibes are just completely off for the Packers. And now, because they lost, they have to go play the Philadelphia Eagles instead of getting to play the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What a disaster finish for the Packers. Their vibes are completely off.
So if you look at how this entire thing plays out now, Green Bay has to go on the road against a team they already lost to early in the season on a different continent. Yeah. And you lose Jair Alexander, you lose Christian Watson, you lose to a team that you haven't lost to in nearly over 2,000 days. You talk about vibes in the trash can. That's got to be a tough way to go down. And the quarterback situation, even if Love is fully healthy, he wasn't anything to write home about in the beginning of this game. And then Malik Willis comes in there and puts them in a situation to potentially win. And all of a sudden you're saying, what is going on? Do you have a chance to maybe get the 6th seed? And then things flip in the blink of an eye, and maybe the best football we've seen all year in the games that were going on in the NFC South and the games that were going on in the NFC North. But out of all the teams, even Chicago has to feel better than Green Bay does right now, finally getting a win after losing 10 consecutive weeks, Ty.
Right.
That's a tough one, having to go on the road to Philadelphia. Best of luck to the Packers.
Yeah, and you talk about Jair Alexander being out for this Packers team, might be the last time he plays for the Green Bay Packers. Is there a team in the NFL where you need a lockdown corner? If you could have one, you need one desperately. Is there a team more than the Philadelphia Eagles where that is the case? I mean, Washington went out and got Marshawn Lattimore, who has barely played because of that hamstring issue that they were aware of when they traded for him. But they go out and get him because you got to play against A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. Now, obviously, I would say that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins is a better combo, but outside of Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, who is better than A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith?
What are those two guys doing next week, though?
That QB wins. We can't. I get it. But
could have won some more games earlier in the season there, Cincinnati.
They could have, and T. Higgins could have played in some more games and all of that. But I'm just saying that's the debate right there. And the point is, if you could have one major lockdown corner, it gives you so much of a better chance of taming down those kind of weapons when you have a pairing at wide receiver like that. So for the Packers to not have him and have to go take on this Eagles team, tough. A terrible end of the season for the Green Bay Packers. But let's go more positive. A great end of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Denver Broncos. It's Locked On NFL, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, from big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $5 to get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays. You can bet the spread, the money line, the over-unders, the player props, and so much more. I love going to FanDuel, and in the playoffs, it is the most fun time to bet when you can just focus down on these matchups. We're going to be going over it on the Locked On NFL podcast, of course, as the week progresses. But make sure that you visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right, Gino, let's cap off this crazy Week 18 recap edition of the Locked On NFL podcast. Before we continue, thanks again for making Locked On NFL your first listen. Make sure to check out the afternoon edition of Locked On NFL with Tony Wiggins in the barbershop. There's probably going to be more coach firings in the early morning, things like that. There's going to be a lot of stuff for Tony to dive into with you guys. But the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they finally do it. They finally hold off the Atlanta Falcons. They get down early. I believe they were down 16-6 to the New Orleans Saints, the corpse of the New Orleans Saints. But Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, they battle back. They get the victory. They get into the playoffs. Now they're going to have a matchup against
Minnesota,
the Washington Commanders. And it's going to be the Sunday night football game.
Yes,
I do believe is what it is. I was trying to think of when that game was going to be played.
I said the wrong one intentionally because I said it wrong on the
there you
segment.
go. There you go. Okay, yeah. But the Buccaneers have a great chance to win that game, to see Mike Evans get that 1,000-yard streak, get his money, them celebrating. The vibes are so high with Tampa Bay, I wouldn't be surprised to see them win that first matchup against the Commanders.
James Yarko over at Locked On Bucks has to be super happy about how that team finished the season. I was watching that game today, Ty, and there's little moments you can see from players throughout their career that really brings you back to when they were a younger player. I saw Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma today when that team was just dead in the water and had no juice and nothing was going right for them. He just never said die, and they just kept pounding the rock with Bucky Irving, who continues to be sensational, and they wanted to get Mike Evans to 1,000 yards, and those guys, you saw at the end of the game how much it meant to them to celebrate getting to 1,000 yards for Mike Evans, and then they can go and win the game. They didn't even have to go and worry about what was going on with Atlanta, who was in a shootout of their own right with Carolina. That was a crazy game going on. But this Tampa team, it's gritty. They're going to host a game in the humidity. The Eagles figured out how that went last year. They got the doors blown off them. Now you're going to host a Washington team where Jaden Daniels, they take him out of that game to keep him healthy, and Marcus Mariota wins against Dallas on the last play of the game. And the NFL was crazy this week, but one thing you can really hone in on with this Tampa Bay team is that they are going to be able to throw the ball, and if they can't throw it, they can run the ball, and they're multi-dimensional. I don't know about the defense, but if it's a shootout, they can score a boatload of points against anybody right now.
Well, that's what I think is going to happen. I think there is going to need to be a ton of points in this game, and I think Tampa Bay's defense might be able to get a couple of stops more than Washington's defense is able to get. But, I mean, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a close game. Can't wait to watch it all break down. Another uncertain playoff spot this week was the Denver Broncos, and if they could hold on with the Cincinnati Bengals winning on Saturday against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the Broncos did exactly that. My guy Cody Rart from Locked On Broncos talked about the streak that has been snapped.
The streak is over. The Denver Broncos are heading back to the postseason for the first time since 2015. This is Cody Rourke, host of Locked On Broncos. And for the Broncos, 9 long years after their Super Bowl 50 win against the Carolina Panthers, the Broncos, they've been battling, trying to get back to the postseason. Quarterback carousels, coaching changes, you name it. They found their foundation now with Sean Payton as head coach. And Bo Nix, as a rookie quarterback, is taking them to the playoffs in his first season under center, dominating the Kansas City Chiefs in Sunday's finale, 38-0. Bo Nix, 26-29, passing for 4 touchdowns. The rookies had a special season, and now the Broncos will travel to Buffalo to take on Josh Allen and the Bills and former friend Von Miller. For all the Locked On Broncos post-game coverage and more, make sure you tune in wherever you get your podcasts or available on YouTube.
Look, tough draw for the Denver Broncos having to go to Buffalo and play the Bills. I don't think anybody's going to expect them to win that game. I'll tell you what, that point spread's probably going to be like 9.5, something like that, and I'm going to take advantage of that. But let me say this. I personally was wrong about the Broncos this year. I've been wrong about the Broncos. I admit it. I'll probably talk about it more later this week as we get ready for their matchup. I was wrong about the Broncos. And I will say this for them. They cannot lose. They can't lose. Even if they lose, they can't lose. This season is a full-on success no matter what happens against Buffalo. They win against Buffalo, incredible success. And what an incredible performance by that franchise. They lose against Buffalo, what an incredible season. Sean Payton has these guys playing right. You have Nick Bonito on defense. You have Bo Nix playing at quarterback. You have a great foundation and you're a year ahead of schedule. There is no way that this season can be anything but a success for the Denver Broncos, no matter what happens from here. And for that, I will say I was wrong about the Broncos. Sorry, Denver fans.
Well, I think there's a few points to hit on here, and I'm going to start with number one. You weren't just wrong, Ty. I'll say this as a Bo Nix supporter who watched him at Oregon the last 2 seasons. 99% of the people that saw that Bo Nix pick at the draft and laughed at it, they were wrong as well. And there's a lot of revisionist history, but good for Bo Nix in that team. And on to point 2, good on that ownership for knowing when to cut bait. Even though the contract didn't even kick in yet for Russell Wilson, he was not the guy. That's how you have to think in the National Football League if you want to move forward. And 3, hats off to Sean Payton. He was a guy who he got a lot of criticism over the last couple years, especially with how the Russ situation went. Earlier in the season, you saw the moments of Bo and him yelling at each other on the sideline. Right. It was worth trading for Sean Payton. Yep. This ownership group, they set in with the mindset that they wanted to get back to the playoffs. Bo Nix taking that victory lap, that was a win for all of Denver today. Like you said, how can you feel bad if you were the Broncos? Yeah, we go into Buffalo, and there's going to be some people over the Wyoming border rooting for Josh, and there will be a nice little rivalry. But, Buffalo's expected to win that game. But what if, Ty? This game reminds me of a game, and you're going to remember this one. Your Titans, nobody gave them a chance. This was about 8-9 years ago, and what did they do? They shocked the world and beat the Chiefs straight up in a game where they were nearly double-digit favorites. A defense which you mentioned Bonito, who could be potentially player of the year. So could Pat Surtain. So could Zach Allen, is one of the best free agent signings of the season. And that offense can run the ball. Cortland Sutton he could catch over anybody at this point. Never say never in this league, man. That I know a lot of people wanted to see Cincinnati and Joe Burrow and what he could do, but a lot of people were wrong about Denver so far. Who's to say they're not going to be wrong about them next week?
Yeah, and watching the way that Bo Nix played, just delivering strikes, running the ball when he needs to, making plays. Denver deserved to be in the playoffs, 100%. Cincinnati did not deserve to be in the playoffs, so I'm happy that it worked out the way that it did. But with that being said, again, a crazy Week 18 to cap off another great NFL season. The playoffs are here, and I'm going to be breaking down the playoffs all week long here on the Locked On NFL podcast. Gino will be here next week to break down a lot of those matchups that take place. But with that being said, that is going to do it for me today, your host, the Madman, Tyler Rowland, for my co-host, Gino Camilleri. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Get subscribed, stay subscribed to the Locked On NFL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as I tell you every episode, stay safe out there.